Elias stepped out of his small exploration craft and felt the crunch of fine golden sand under his boots. The sky above the planet shimmered with a pale orange glow, as if the sun itself was cautious about revealing too much. This planet was far from human civilization, and yet it had drawn him like a magnet. Rumors had spoken of ruins older than any human records, ruins that held secrets of lost knowledge and technology, and Elias had come to see for himself. The ruins lay ahead, half buried under layers of sand that had been swept by countless storms over centuries. Large stone walls, cracked and weathered, jutted out from the dunes. Strange symbols, worn almost beyond recognition, were etched into some of the stones. They seemed to hum faintly, but Elias dismissed it as the wind playing tricks on his ears. He carried little with him, a standard explorer's pack, a portable scanner, and a small supply of rations. For all his equipment, Elias knew that what would matter here most was his mind, his intuition, and his patience. The planet was quiet, eerily quiet, but he could not shake the feeling that he was being observed. Probably just nerves, he muttered to himself. Nothing here is alive, right? As he walked closer to the ruins, he noticed the shadows shifting in unusual ways. At first, he thought it was the sun playing tricks, but the shadows moved faster than the light should allow. One stone arch seemed to extend and contract as if breathing. Elias froze, heart pounding. The wind picked up, carrying with it a faint melodic sound. It was not music exactly, but a sequence of tones, soft and deliberate, that seemed almost like a greeting. He shook his head. I'm imagining things. Yet deep down, he knew he was not. There was something about these ruins, something more than just stone and dust. They were aware. Elias reached the edge of a large plaza, the heart of the ruins. Here the stones formed a rough circle, broken in several places. In the center, a large pedestal rose from the ground. On it lay an object wrapped in a thin layer of dust, a cube made of a metal that did not corrode, glowing faintly from within. He approached cautiously. Ancient tech, he whispered, brushing the dust away. The glow inside pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. His scanner went wild, readings spiking in ways he had never seen before. Energy patterns, unknown elements, and faint signals that seemed almost alive. Elias knelt beside the cube. He felt a strange pull, as if the object was calling to him. When he touched it, a shiver ran through his arm. The ruins responded. The ground trembled faintly, sand shifting around his feet, forming intricate patterns. Stones moved slightly, rearranging themselves, not enough to topple, but enough to make him step back in awe. He realized then that the rumors were true. These ruins were not dead. They were waiting. Waiting. For me, he murmured, the words tasting strange in his mouth. Could a ruin truly wait for a person? The idea seemed impossible, yet every instinct in his body screamed yes. Elias set up his small camp at the edge of the plaza. He needed to rest, to gather his thoughts. He lit a small lamp, its light flickering against the ruins' walls, and sat down. The cube still pulsed in the distance, a steady rhythm like a heartbeat echoing through the plaza. As night fell, the temperature dropped, but Elias hardly noticed. He lay back on his sleeping mat, staring up at the sky. 2 moons hung above, casting silvery light over the dunes. Somewhere in the distance he thought he heard a whisper, though the wind was still. The next morning, he was ready. He approached the cube again, this time more confident. He circled it, scanning, touching, and observing. The ruins seemed to guide him. A passage opened, hidden behind a collapsed wall, revealing a corridor that descended into darkness. Elias felt a thrill. This was it, the first step into the heart of a civilization long forgotten. He took a deep breath and entered. The corridor was narrow, the walls covered in symbols that glowed faintly as he passed. Each step echoed, though no one else was there. The air smelled faintly metallic, a scent that reminded him of storm clouds and rain on iron. After walking for what felt like hours, he reached a chamber larger than he expected. In the center, a pool of liquid shimmered, reflecting light that had no source. He leaned over and the liquid rippled, showing images. Faces. Humans. But not like any he had seen. They wore clothing of strange design, their eyes wide with curiosity and intelligence. They were scientists, explorers, and thinkers. Elias realized that he was looking at the ancestors of the ruins' creators. He touched the liquid, and the faces blinked, acknowledging him. A voice echoed in his mind, soft but clear. "Welcome, human. You have come as we hoped." Elias staggered back, heart racing. He was alone in this chamber. Yet the voice was real. It was not threatening, but full of expectation. Who are you?" he asked aloud, though he sensed the answer would not come from the lips but from thought itself. The liquid shimmered again. Symbols formed in the air, rearranging themselves into patterns that made no immediate sense. Yet somehow, he understood. These were not words. They were ideas, instructions, invitations. The ruins were alive, yes, but more than that. They were intelligent. And they had been waiting for a human to arrive. He spent the rest of the day exploring the chamber, carefully observing every detail. The walls, the pool, the inscriptions, they all seemed to respond to his presence. Small doors that had been hidden opened as he approached. Holographic images of the ruins' creators appeared, showing their work, their experiments, and their discoveries. Each image was a puzzle, a challenge meant to prepare whoever entered for something greater. By the end of the day, Elias felt both excitement and unease. These ruins were not simply a place of history, they were a test. And he had just begun as he lay in his small sleeping space inside the ruins. He could hear faint hums and whispers. He was not alone, though no one else was visible. The ruins were alive, and they were aware of him. Elias closed his eyes and thought of humanity. Its achievements, its failures, and its endless curiosity. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was the beginning of something larger than himself. The ruins had chosen him, or perhaps he had chosen them. In the quiet darkness, the pulse of the cube echoed faintly, like a heartbeat in the stone, and somewhere deep in the walls the ruins waited, patient and watchful for the next step. Elias smiled despite the chill in the air. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready to face it. Humanity had brought him here, and humanity would guide him through whatever trials the ruins had prepared. And so, the human wanderer began his journey into the forgotten ruins, unaware that every step he took was being observed, anticipated, and understood. The ruins were alive, and they had been waiting. Just for him. Elias awoke to a faint, steady glow that filled the chamber. The cube he had discovered the day before pulsed softly, casting a rhythm of light across the walls. The air smelled the same, metallic, sharp, yet strangely clean. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and realized that the ruins were no longer silent. Walls that had seemed solid yesterday now vibrated gently, faint lines of light appearing along cracks and inscriptions. A corridor that had been blocked by rubble had cleared itself overnight, revealing a path deeper into the ruins. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. This was no accident. The ruins were reacting to him. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, scanning everything with his portable device. The scanner's readings fluctuated wildly. Energy levels spiked in patterns that made no immediate sense, yet somehow his instincts told him that they were not dangerous. They were tests. As he moved down the corridor, the walls began to display images, holographic scenes that flickered and danced like memories frozen in time. Elias watched in awe. He saw humanoid figures, tall and graceful, working with devices far beyond human understanding. Machines that bent light, energy patterns flowing through open air, and vast libraries of floating symbols that seemed alive. They weren't just builders, Elias whispered. They were thinkers, inventors, explorers. The corridor split into 3 paths, each one lined with different symbols. Elias felt drawn toward the middle path, as if something deeper within him was guiding his choice. The path narrowed and descended into a large chamber, circular and smooth, as if carved from a single piece of stone. In the center stood a platform, surrounded by hovering lights that pulsed in unison with the cube's glow. Elias approached, cautiously. As he stepped closer, the lights moved slightly, creating a ring around him. Then, without warning, the platform rose slowly, lifting him off the ground. Elias gasped. He floated above the floor, held not by wires or magnetic fields, but by some unseen force. The lights converged, forming a holographic figure. It was humanoid, with features soft but precise, and eyes that glowed like the cube. "Welcome, human," the figure said, its voice calm but clear. "You have awakened us." Elias's heart raced. "Awakened? You? But you are ruins. Inanimate. Silent." The figure shook its head. "We were dormant, waiting. Our creators are gone, but our purpose remains. We were designed to interact with those who are curious, courageous, and wise. You have been chosen to continue what was started here." Elias swallowed hard. The words were incredible, almost impossible to believe. Yet, as he looked around the chamber, he felt no fear. Instead, he felt a deep sense of connection. The holographic figure extended its hands, and the hovering light shifted to form a map. It displayed stars, planets, and lines of energy connecting them in ways Elias had never seen. He realized it was a map of the galaxy, one that included routes to hidden resources, abandoned colonies, and planets suitable for life. This knowledge, it could change humanity, Elias said softly. "Yes," the figure replied. "But knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. You must prove that you are worthy of it." The chamber shifted suddenly. The walls glowed brighter, symbols rearranging themselves into puzzles and sequences. Lights formed pathways across the floor, some solid, some flickering, as if testing his ability to choose carefully. Elias understood immediately. These were trials designed to measure his intellect, intuition, and moral judgment. He stepped forward, choosing the first path carefully. The floor beneath him lit up solidly, guiding him forward. But a misstep to the side caused the lights to flicker violently, forcing him to retreat and reconsider. The ruins were alive, and they were teaching him to think, to adapt, to anticipate. Hours passed as Elias navigated the chamber. Each puzzle required not just logic but creativity. Some were mathematical, others spatial, and a few tested his ability to understand patterns in the symbols on the walls. He felt his mind stretching, his senses sharpening. He realized that this was not merely a test of knowledge, it was a test of humanity. Then came the most unexpected challenge. A holographic figure appeared, representing another human, a companion trapped in a simulated danger. The figure called for help, pleading, while a valuable artifact, the kind that could advance human technology by centuries, lay unprotected in the center of the chamber. Elias hesitated. The ruins seemed to challenge him directly. Choose the artifact or save the human. Logic suggested the artifact was the smarter choice, the one that would bring recognition and reward. But his instincts, his empathy, told him otherwise. He reached out and guided the holographic human to safety. The artifact remained, glowing softly but unclaimed. As soon as he made the choice, the chamber fell silent. The walls dimmed, the lights settled, and the platform lowered him gently to the ground. "You have passed the trial," the holographic figure said. "You have shown that human intuition, courage, and empathy cannot be replicated by machines or patterns alone. This is what we were waiting for." Elias breathed heavily. The realization struck him hard. The ruins had been designed to recognize what made humans unique: creativity, moral choice, and the ability to adapt. Not just intelligence, but humanity itself. A doorway opened at the far end of the chamber. Beyond it lay a vast hall filled with objects that shimmered with faint light. Tools, devices, and instruments, each one more advanced than anything humans had yet built. Yet Elias understood the lesson. These gifts were not to be taken lightly. They were tests, and only those who proved their worth could access their full potential. As he stepped into the hall, he noticed something else. Symbols in the air, floating and shifting. They were not stationary, but moving, almost like a language that could think and change. Elias focused on one, and suddenly he could interpret it. It conveyed a single message: learn, adapt, share, protect. He realized that the ruins were teaching him not just technology, but philosophy. The creators had understood that knowledge alone was not enough. Wisdom and responsibility were necessary for survival and growth. Elias spent the remainder of the day exploring the hall, careful with every step. Some objects responded to his touch, activating briefly and showing holographic demonstrations of their use. Others remained inert, waiting for further trials or understanding. It was as if the ruins were offering lessons at their own pace, only revealing what he was ready to comprehend. By nightfall, Elias returned to his small camp inside the ruins. He felt a sense of wonder mixed with humility. Humanity had reached for the stars. Yes, but the universe was full of challenges and intelligence, far older and wiser than humans themselves, and yet the ruins had chosen him, not for strength, not for cunning, but for something uniquely human. The combination of courage, empathy, and curiosity. As he lay down to rest, he felt the walls of the ruins hum softly, a lullaby of light and sound that comforted him. The cube outside pulsed faintly, echoing the rhythm of the chamber as if acknowledging his progress. Elias closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the day's lessons and the promise of what lay ahead. Somewhere deep, in the ruins unseen and patient, the intelligence that had waited for centuries stirred with quiet satisfaction. The human had awakened them, and now the real journey would begin. Elias dreamed that night of stars, of glowing cities, and of challenges yet to come. And in the quiet darkness, he understood the truth. The ruins were not just a test. They were a guide, and he had passed the first threshold. When morning came, Elias was ready. The halls of the ruins seemed to recognize him now, responding more fluidly to his movements. Doors opened at his approach, lights guided his steps, and faint whispers of ancient knowledge brushed against his mind. The ruins had awakened, and they were alive, not merely stone and metal, but a living legacy of a civilization that had trusted humanity to continue their work. And so, with renewed purpose, Elias stepped forward into the deeper mysteries of the ruins, unaware of the trials that awaited, but certain of one thing: the ruins had chosen a human, and humanity had a chance to rise once more among the stars. Elias stepped deeper into the ruins, feeling the pulse of the walls beneath his feet. The air seemed heavier here, charged with the energy of countless generations long gone. Every stone, every symbol, and every faint hum told a story of a civilization that had once reached unimaginable heights. But Elias knew that admiration alone would not be enough. The ruins were alive, and they were testing him, not just his mind but his spirit. He entered a vast hall, circular in shape, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. At the center, a glowing platform floated above the ground, surrounded by intricate patterns of light. The walls were covered with holographic images, each one depicting challenges, some of intellect, some of endurance, and others of moral choice. A soft voice echoed in the chamber, clear yet without direction. To continue, human, you must prove that you are more than your strength or your curiosity. You must show understanding, patience, and courage. Elias's heart quickened. He had already faced tests of observation and perception, but this felt different. These trials demanded more than skill. They demanded humanity. The first trial appeared before him. A series of floating cubes hovered in midair, each inscribed with symbols. As he reached out to touch one, it split into smaller cubes, each spinning and shifting unpredictably. Elias realized that he had to assemble them in a precise pattern, but the solution was not obvious. He studied the shapes carefully, noticing patterns in their movement. Some symbols repeated in sequences that formed a rhythm. He followed the rhythm with his hands gently rotating and aligning the cubes. After several tense minutes, the final cube clicked into place, and the platform beneath him glowed warmly. He had passed the first trial, not through brute force but through observation, patience, and careful thought. Before he could catch his breath, the second trial appeared. The chamber transformed. Shadows lengthened and twisted into illusions of deep chasms and impossible heights. He felt a vertigo that was not real, yet it pressed against his senses. From the darkness, holographic guardians emerged, floating figures that mirrored his own form, challenging him to navigate the distorted space without touching the walls. Elias took a deep breath, focusing on his instincts. He closed his eyes for a moment, relying on his sense of balance and intuition. Step by step, he moved through the illusions, trusting his human instincts rather than the misleading images. One misstep could have sent him crashing into a projected void, but his careful choices carried him forward. When he reached the end of the illusion, the walls shifted back to normal, and the guardians dissolved into light. Elias exhaled, feeling a mix of relief and exhilaration. The ruins were teaching him something vital. Humans could perceive beyond the obvious, adapt where machines might fail, and trust their instincts when logic alone was not enough. The third trial was the hardest yet. A holographic human appeared before him, trapped in a cage of shimmering energy. The figure's eyes were wide with fear, and it called out for help. At the same time, an artifact hovered in the center of the chamber, radiating a glow that promised great knowledge and power. Elias understood immediately. The ruins were testing his priorities. He could reach the artifact first, gaining access to technology that could advance humanity by centuries, or he could rescue the figure. His mind raced. Logic argued for the artifact. It would be useful, practical, even heroic. But his heart, his very sense of what made humans human, pulled him toward the trapped figure. He stepped forward and focused on the energy cage, feeling the flow of the ruins' power around him. Using subtle gestures, he redirected the currents, opening the cage and freeing the holographic human. The figure smiled, gratitude clear even though it was only an image. Elias glanced at the artifact, still glowing, and a calm understanding settled over him. The ruins valued wisdom and compassion more than immediate gain. The chamber brightened, the platform beneath him rising once more. The voice spoke again. "You have shown that you are capable of empathy, choice, and courage. These qualities are the essence of humanity, and the reason we awaited your arrival." Elias felt both pride and humility. He had survived tests of intellect, perception, and morality, yet he knew there would be more challenges ahead. The ruins had only begun to reveal their lessons, and he could sense that each trial would grow in difficulty and importance. The fourth trial was unexpected. The chamber shifted into a simulation of the planet's surface as it had once been, lush and vibrant, filled with structures that glimmered with energy. Holographic creatures roamed the landscape, and humans of the lost civilization moved among them. Elias could see the society in motion, a world thriving with knowledge, art, and invention. Then, the simulation changed. Disaster struck. A storm, a sudden collapse of a bridge, and a fire spreading across a hall. Elias realized that he had to make decisions, intervene, and save lives without the guidance of the ruins directly. His choices affected the outcome, showing his ability to act responsibly under pressure. Step by step, he guided the simulation's inhabitants, prioritizing safety, using creativity to solve problems, and sometimes making difficult choices that had no perfect solution. When the simulation ended, the chamber returned to normal, and a gentle voice said, "You understand balance. You understand responsibility. These are lessons that cannot be taught by observation alone." Exhausted but determined, Elias pressed onward. The fifth trial awaited, its nature more subtle than the others. A wall in front of him shifted, revealing a simple, empty room. No puzzles, no illusions, no trapped figures. Just a single chair and a pedestal. On the pedestal lay a glowing crystal, small and unassuming yet radiating immense power. Elias approached, feeling the weight of choice pressing on him once again. He could take the crystal, claiming its power, or he could leave it, respecting the ruins' intention and demonstrating restraint. The lessons so far had taught him patience, courage, empathy, and responsibility. Now came the final test. Wisdom. He sat in the chair, observing the crystal, listening to the rhythm of the ruins. The walls seemed to hum with expectation. Elias realized that the true test was not action, but understanding. He closed his eyes and reflected on everything he had experienced, the Creator's legacy, the trials, the lessons, and the connection he felt with the ruins. After a long moment, he reached out not to take the crystal but to acknowledge it, to understand it. The crystal pulsed, responding to his choice. A warm light filled the chamber, surrounding him in a glow that was not threatening but welcoming. The voice spoke once more, calm and proud. "You have passed, human. You have shown what it means to be worthy. Knowledge, power, and responsibility are now open to you, but only because you have proven that you can carry them wisely." Elias felt a sense of awe unlike anything he had ever known. The ruins had not merely tested him, they had shaped him, teaching him the depth of human potential. He understood now that the challenges were not obstacles to conquer, but lessons to learn. Humanity's strength lay not just in invention or exploration, but in empathy, courage, adaptability, and wisdom. As he left the chamber, he noticed the walls seemed to glow more brightly, symbols shifting in patterns that welcomed him forward. The ruins were alive, yes, but they were also patient teachers, guiding those who were ready to listen and learn. He paused at the entrance to the next corridor, looking back one last time at the trials he had faced. Each had tested a different aspect of his mind and spirit, each had revealed the uniqueness of humanity, and each had prepared him for what lay ahead. He felt a profound respect for the lost civilization, for their wisdom and for the ruins themselves. Elias stepped forward, deeper into the mysteries of the ancient place. He knew that more trials awaited, challenges that would test every part of him, body, mind, and spirit. Yet he felt ready, strengthened by what he had learned and inspired by the knowledge that humanity was capable of rising to challenges far beyond its current understanding. As he walked, he could hear the faint hum of the walls like a song of approval. The ruins had awakened, and Elias had proven himself worthy. But this was only the beginning. The journey ahead promised even greater discoveries, more profound lessons, and the opportunity to carry the legacy of a lost civilization into the future of humanity. The human wanderer pressed onward, stepping into the light and shadows of the ruins, each step measured, thoughtful, and full of determination. The trials of mind and spirit had shown him his potential, and he would need every ounce of courage and wisdom for the challenges still to come. And somewhere deep in the walls, the intelligence that had waited for centuries watched him with quiet satisfaction. Elias had passed the threshold, and now the ruins would guide him further, revealing secrets that could change the course of human history forever. Elias stepped into the next chamber, his eyes widening at the sight before him. The room was enormous, its ceiling lost in shadow, and every wall shimmered with a soft, golden light. Holographic images floated in the air, showing the daily life of a civilization long gone. He saw scientists, engineers, and explorers working with technology that bent light and energy, buildings that seemed to grow organically, and machines that moved with intelligence of their own. This is incredible," Elias whispered. They were beyond anything humans have built. The chamber was quiet, but it felt alive. As he walked further in, the light patterns on the walls shifted, forming shapes he could recognize, maps, diagrams, and symbols that conveyed knowledge far beyond his own. It was as if the ruins themselves were telling him a story, revealing the achievements of those who had built this place. Elias paused before a massive holographic display. It showed a star system, planets marked with symbols that pulsed softly. Some planets were bright, alive with energy, while others were dark, empty, or unstable. He realized that this civilization had mapped vast regions of the galaxy, documenting not only worlds but the energy and resources of each. A voice echoed through the chamber, gentle but clear. You have passed the trials, human. You have proven that you possess the qualities necessary to understand and protect the knowledge left behind. Elias felt a thrill of awe. You mean, you trust me to use this knowledge? Yes, the voice replied. Our civilization vanished, but our work remains. We left these ruins to guide those who were capable of learning, of understanding, and of carrying our knowledge forward. You are human, and your species possesses a spark that we believed would be needed. As he continued exploring, Elias discovered a room filled with devices that pulsed with soft light. Some were tools of communication, others were machines for energy generation or transportation. Each had a holographic demonstration showing how it could be used. Elias realized that the ruins were not just a test, they were a library, a laboratory, and a school all at once. One device in particular caught his attention. It was small, cube-shaped, and seemed almost ordinary compared to the others. But as he touched it, a flood of information entered his mind. Histories, inventions, mathematical formulas, and philosophical ideas. He understood instantly that this civilization had not only mastered technology but also wisdom. They had considered not only what could be done but what should be done. Elias spent hours in the chamber, absorbing what he could. He carefully examined every holographic record, every device and every symbol. The ruins were generous, but he felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. This knowledge could help humanity advance, yes, but only if used wisely. The wrong choice could bring harm, not progress. At the far end of the chamber, a staircase descended into darkness. Elias hesitated for a moment, then began to walk down. The air grew cooler and the walls were lined with glowing symbols that seemed to guide his steps. He reached a small room where a central pedestal held a single holographic interface. As he approached, the interface activated. A figure appeared, not a solid human form, but a translucent image of one of the civilization's greatest minds. It spoke directly into his mind, its words clear and full of emotion. We left this place as a gift for those who could understand, but we also left warnings. Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. You must use what you find to help, to protect, and to inspire, not to dominate or control. We believed that humans, with their courage, creativity, and empathy, could carry our work responsibly. Will you? Elias took a deep breath. He knew the answer. Yes. I will carry your knowledge with care, and I will use it to help humanity. Not for myself alone. The holographic figure nodded, and the pedestal projected a map of the galaxy, highlighting systems that contained resources, habitable planets, and remnants of lost civilizations. Elias realized that this was more than guidance, it was a path forward, a way for humanity to grow beyond its limits. As he studied the map, he noticed one system in particular. Its symbol pulsed differently, almost as if it were alive. A small voice in his mind urged him to explore it first. He understood that this might be a place of even greater knowledge, perhaps a central hub for the civilization's achievements. He moved toward the system, and the ruins shifted around him. Walls and floors realigned, creating corridors that guided him with purpose. Elias felt a sense of connection, as if the ruins themselves were working with him, not against him. The intelligence that had waited for centuries was now his companion, teaching him and guiding him with patience. In the following hours, Elias discovered records of the civilization's greatest achievements. They had harnessed energy from stars, built machines that could move across space without fuel, and created networks of knowledge that spanned entire galaxies. Yet, alongside these accomplishments were records of mistakes, times when ambition had led to conflict, when technology had been used without thought, causing harm. The lessons were clear. Power was not enough. Responsibility, understanding, and empathy were essential. Elias felt a deep respect for the lost civilization. They had not left their knowledge recklessly. They had designed the ruins to ensure that only those capable of wisdom could inherit it. As night approached, Elias settled in a small alcove within the chamber. He ate a few rations and reflected on the discoveries of the day. The ruins had revealed not only technology and knowledge, but also the philosophy of a civilization that had vanished long before humanity had reached the stars. The lessons were as valuable as the inventions themselves. He realized that his journey was only beginning. The ruins had prepared him for the challenges ahead, but there was still much to learn. The civilization's technology could advance humanity by centuries, but only if it was used wisely. Elias felt a responsibility heavier than any he had ever known, yet it filled him with purpose rather than fear. In the quiet chamber, he felt the presence of the ruins more strongly than ever. The walls pulsed with a gentle rhythm, like a heartbeat, and the holographic images shimmered as if acknowledging his understanding. The voice spoke once more, soft and calm. "You have seen our work, human. You have understood our intentions. The next step is yours. Use what you have learned, and continue the journey. Protect what is precious, seek what is unknown, and carry our legacy forward." Elias nodded, feeling a sense of determination that strengthened with every passing moment. He knew that the challenges ahead would test him further, but he was ready. The ruins had awakened his mind, his spirit, and his sense of responsibility. Humanity had been given a chance, and he would carry it with honor. As he prepared to leave the chamber, he noticed a small doorway partially hidden behind a holographic projection. It led to a narrow corridor, darker and quieter than the halls he had explored so far. A subtle energy drew him forward, guiding him toward what seemed to be the heart of the ruins. With cautious steps, Elias entered the corridor. The walls hummed softly, symbols glowing faintly in patterns that he now instinctively understood. He realized that he was approaching the central core, a place where the civilization's greatest knowledge and secrets were stored. The air was cooler here, and the light seemed to bend around him in strange ways as if the very space was alive. He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. The ruins had tested him, taught him, and revealed their secrets. Now he was about to reach the culmination of their guidance, the place where humanity's next leap might begin. Elias stepped forward, feeling a mixture of excitement, awe, and responsibility. He knew that what lay ahead could change the future of his species forever. The ruins had awakened, their intelligence alive and patient, waiting for him to prove that humanity was ready. And as he moved deeper into the hidden corridors, the pulse of the ruins seemed to echo in his chest. The human wanderer had reached the threshold of the civilization's greatest secrets, and the choices he made next would determine not only his own fate, but the future of humanity itself. The journey into the heart of the forgotten civilization had begun. Elias stepped into the central chamber of the ruins, a place unlike any he had seen before. The room stretched farther than his eyes could reach, filled with floating lights and shimmering devices that seemed to hum with energy. The air was alive, with knowledge, as if the very atmosphere carried centuries of wisdom. At the center stood a massive platform glowing with an intensity that made him squint. On the platform lay a crystal, larger than a human head, pulsing with energy. Elias instinctively knew that this crystal was the culmination of everything the ruins had offered, a repository of knowledge and technology capable of advancing humanity beyond imagination. Yet as he approached, a quiet warning echoed in his mind. Power without wisdom could destroy everything. The ruins were not simply a gift, they were a test, and he had reached the final threshold. "Human," a voice resonated through the chamber, calm but firm. "The choice is yours. The knowledge within this crystal can shape the destiny of your species, but it can only be entrusted to one who understands the responsibility it carries. Will you claim it for yourself or for humanity?" Elias felt the weight of the moment, pressing on him. Every lesson he had learned, the trials of mind, the trials of spirit, the lessons of empathy, courage, and patience, culminated here. He took a deep breath and stepped closer to the crystal, feeling the energy ripple through his hands. He closed his eyes and thought of humanity, its achievements, its failures, its endless curiosity. He thought of explorers reaching for distant, stars of scientists searching for answers, and of the countless people who had dreamed of a better future. The crystal could be the key to that future, but only if it was used wisely. Slowly, he reached out, not to grasp it, but to touch it, lightly, acknowledging the responsibility it represented. The crystal pulsed brighter, and the chamber responded. Holographic images appeared around him, showing humanity's potential. Colonies among the stars, cities powered by clean energy, medical breakthroughs, and a society guided by knowledge and empathy. But the images also showed what could happen if the crystal's power were misused. Conflict, environmental collapse, and destruction on a planetary scale. Elias understood immediately. The power itself was not dangerous. It was the choices made with it that could bring ruin or salvation. "You have chosen wisely," the voice said. "Not for personal gain, but for the greater good. This is what makes humans unique. Your courage, empathy, and wisdom have proven that you can carry the legacy of our civilization." The crystal descended gently into his hands, yet it did not feel heavy. Instead, it felt alive, like a companion, responding to his thoughts and understanding his intent. Elias realized that the knowledge within was not a collection of data alone. It was guidance, a partnership between those who had come before and those who would shape the future. As he held the crystal, the chamber transformed around him. Walls of light projected images of the lost civilization's greatest achievements. Cities that glimmered in space. Machines that traveled without fuel. Networks of knowledge spanning planets, and energy harnessed from stars. Every invention, every idea, every lesson was now accessible to him. But the ruins reminded him again, the knowledge was not a gift to hoard. It was a responsibility to share, to guide humanity toward growth without greed, to inspire rather than control. Elias felt the weight of that responsibility, but it did not scare him. It strengthened him. He spent hours exploring the central chamber, interacting with devices and holographic guides. Each interaction taught him more about the civilization, their methods, their philosophy, and their intentions. He realized that the greatest achievement of this civilization was not their technology, it was their wisdom. They had understood that true advancement required balance, restraint, and ethical choice. Finally, as he prepared to leave the chamber, the ruins seemed to respond to his readiness. Paths opened, showing corridors leading back to the surface. The light of the cube in his hands pulsed in harmony with the ambient glow of the chamber, almost as if it were guiding him forward. Elias walked slowly, reflecting on what he had learned. The ruins had challenged him, taught him, and trusted him. He had passed trials that tested every part of his mind and spirit, and now he carried the culmination of a civilization's legacy, the knowledge, technology, and wisdom that could propel humanity into a new era. As he emerged from the central chamber, the light of the planet's moons reflected off the ruins. The structures seemed to breathe, shadows shifting in acknowledgement of his achievement. Elias paused and looked back at the ruins, feeling a deep sense of respect and gratitude. This place had waited for him, tested him, and awakened him to humanity's potential. With the crystal in his hands and the knowledge in his mind, he returned to his exploration craft. The planet stretched before him, quiet yet alive, as if bidding him farewell. Elias took one last look at the ruins, knowing that he would carry their legacy wherever he went. As he lifted off, the wind of the dunes whispered against the hull, and the ruins slowly receded into the landscape. The pulse of their intelligence remained with him, not as a burden, but as a companion and guide. Humanity had been entrusted with a gift beyond imagination, and Elias had proven that they were worthy. In the following weeks, Elias returned to human space, sharing what he had learned carefully, wisely, and with humility. He introduced innovations that improved life, expanded exploration, and fostered cooperation among planets. Humanity flourished not because of unchecked power, but because Elias had understood the responsibility the ruins had taught him. The crystal remained with him, a symbol of wisdom and partnership. It was not simply a tool. It was a reminder that knowledge required care, and that the choices of one human could influence the future of an entire species. Elias often thought back to the ruins, to the lessons learned in their quiet, watchful halls. He remembered the trials, the tests of courage, empathy, and intelligence, and he knew, deep in his heart, that the true achievement was not the technology he carried. It was the understanding that humanity's greatest strength lay in the combination of mind, spirit, and moral courage. The human wanderer had entered the forgotten ruins, and the ruins had waited for him. Now he carried their legacy into the stars, not as a conqueror, but as a guide, teacher, and guardian. Humanity had been given a chance to rise, and Elias had proven that it could be done with wisdom, courage, and compassion. As he gazed at the stars from his craft, he felt a sense of purpose stronger than any he had known. The ruins had opened, a door to the future, and humanity had stepped through it. Elias smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey that would shape countless generations to come. The pulse of the crystal echoed in harmony with his own heartbeat. Humanity had been tested, humanity had risen, and humanity would continue to explore, learn, and grow. And somewhere, deep within the sands of the distant planet, the ruins rested once more, patient and watchful, waiting for the next human who would seek knowledge with courage, empathy, and wisdom. The story of Elias and the forgotten ruins ended, but the legacy of humanity's spirit had just begun.